Hi, darling. Are you ready to learn a little bit of history today? I will be the one helping you out, so all you need to do is take a seat or lay somewhere, close your eyes, and try to picture everything that I'm telling you right now in your head. Poveglia is a small island located between Venice and Lido in northern Italy. It is divided between two parts. The island first appeared in the historical records in the year 421, and it was populated until the residents fled warfare in 1379. For more than 100 years, beginning in 1776, the island was used as a quarantine station for those suffering the plague and other diseases, and it was also used as a mental hospital later. The mental hospital closed in 1968, and the island has been empty ever since. This means that, as of today, it has been vacant for more than 56 years. Visits to the islands are prohibited. But of course, this was not enough to stop various books and articles about this place to rise up from the seas. Many have acknowledged this place as one of the most haunted islands in the world. So, I guess you may wonder, why would such a small island like this one, that does seem to have its fair share of history, to be treated in such a manner, to be seen as this haunted, desolate, and scary looking place? Well, that's what we're gonna find out today, okay? As I said earlier, the island was first mentioned in Chronicles of 421. This was a time when people from places like Padua and Este would flee there to escape the barbarian invasions that happened during that time. Fast forward a few hundred years and we're now in the 9th century. It was during this time when the island's population began to grow, and in the following centuries, its importance would begin to grow fast until it was governed by a dedicated podesta. So, what does a podesta mean? A podesta is basically a name given to the owner of the highest state of office in the government of the cities of central and northern Italy during that time, so during the late Middle Ages. In simple words, it means that the podesta is basically a name that someone who is the equivalent of the president in northern and central Italy during the late Middle Ages. So, this means that Poveglia, as an island situated in northern Italy, would fall subject to this change in the country. Anyway, going back to the topic, in 1379, Venice would be under attack from the Genoan fleet as a result of the war that was still going on there. The people of Poveglia were then forced to move to the Giudecca, which was another island in northern Italy. The island would then remain uninhabited for centuries, like literal hundreds of years. That was until the year 1527, when a man who went by the name of Leonardo Loredan became the Duke of Venice. So again, what does a Duke mean? It pretty much means that, there's either a lord or the head of the state of several Italian cities, so I guess you can apply the same logic here, that a Duke would be the president or just someone who holds a lot of power in several cities in Italy. So now we have Leonardo Loredan, who was the Duke of Venice. Because of that, so because of him being the Duke of Venice, he had the power and influence to offer Poveglia to a group of monks, who of course ended up refusing the offer. Maybe, maybe they've been told about the scary tales originating from that place. Fast forward to the year 1645 and onwards, the Venetian government, so the government of Venice, they built 5 octagonal forts to protect and control the entrances to the lagoon. So, in other words, they were building forts to kind of isolate the entire island. And to this day, so from 1645 to this very day, it is the Poveglia octagon that has literally survived the traversal of time. In the year 1776, the island came under the rule of the so-called Magistrato alla Sanità, which roughly translates to Public Health Office. It became a checkpoint for all goods and people coming to and going from Venice by ship. A few years later, more specifically in 1793, there were several cases of the plague on 2 ships, and consequently the island was transformed into a temporary confinement station for people who were sick. That was a very, how do I put it? It was a dark period for those people. And the way I said it, the way I described the island being transformed into a confinement station was as soft as I could put it. Why? Well, it was as bad as being a waste ground for corpses. It was revealed that children and even babies would be thrown into the island even after they would show mild symptoms. They would be taken away from their homes and put into this gruesome, forlorn island. This act of doing became permanent in 1805, under the rule of the well-known Napoleon Bonaparte. And it was reported that more than 100,000 bodies reside within that island. The island was used as a quarantine station from the years 1793 until 1814. In 1922, the existing buildings were converted into an asylum for the mentally ill and later used as a nursing home facility until its closure in 1968. After this period of time, the island was briefly used for agriculture and it was then completely abandoned. So this ties back to the fact that the island had been completely abandoned, left vacant, completely empty for more than 56 years because, as I said at the start, it was since 1968 when when people used it for the last time. That's what I'm trying to say. Pardon me, I'm not very sharp right now. But yeah, so that was a little bit of the history, but now we will be discussing the haunting anecdotes, I guess, the stories people have written about this island and their experiences. It was in the year 1922, before the island would come to a close, when a doctor visited Poveglia to oversee the hospital. In the past 8 years of the hospital's existence, patients would often complain about harassment by ghosts. The doctor mocked these as mere delusions and performed lobotomies on his patients to quote-unquote exorcise the ghosts. He believed that they were a great way to treat and cure mental illnesses. So he would perform surgeries on a number of patients, usually against their will. The procedures were absolutely evil and painful. He used hammers, chisels, and even drills with no anesthesia or concern for his patient's well being. In other words, just imagine being fallen under a surgery and you're able to feel every ounce of pain your own doctor is forcing upon you after you complain about your own mental issues. Just for him to see it as a matter of mutilating your body in the hopes of solving the problem. This is just, when I was reading, I had to do research for this obviously, and I was reading an article or a blog or something, and the person would vividly describe how exactly that must have felt for the patient. And when I was reading that, I was just it was crazy, okay? It was just no. Anyway, he supposedly saved his darkest experiments for special patients, who he took to the hospital's bell tower. It was said that his methods were so gruesome that the screams of his patients could still be heard today. However, this story does have a good ending. Presumably months after his career, the doctor suffered from his own mental torture and was pursued by Poveglia's various of ghosts until he ultimately lost his mind and climbed on the top of the tower and jumped to his death below. Some say that he was pushed from the bell tower. Some say that an angry spirit pushed him, or even one of his patients, which does seem to be the most believable one of the three. That is kind of what I wanted to tell you, darling. I hope that you now know a bit of history about Italy, and by now you should have been informed, and I guess you should know quite well about Poveglia and its history. Oh, look at that. You've fallen asleep. Okay then. Have a good night.